Started. I'm Debbie Liu, the Associate Director of ESIG, and I wanted to welcome everyone to this special webinar, The Need for Intertie Optimization, Reducing Customer Costs, Improving Grid Resilience, and Encouraging Interregional Transmission. For those of you who aren't familiar with ESIG, we're a membership-based nonprofit organization. We provide our members with objective information, resources, and networking opportunities in support of clean energy and energy systems integration decisions. We do this through workshops, tutorials, webinars, blogs, working groups, and task force activities, and we produce technical resource materials. ESIG also leads one of the pillars of the Global Power System Transformation Consortium, or GPST, whose mission is to bring together key actors to catalyze a rapid, clean energy transition at unprecedented scope and speed. And you can get more information on GPST at www.globalpst.org. So here at ESIG, we recently completed our markets and meteorology workshop, as well as a new workshop on long-term load forecasting. You can watch all that on our YouTube channel. And right now we're preparing for our fall technical workshop. It starts October 23rd. It'll be in person in San Diego, and FERC Commissioner Allison Clements will deliver the keynote. The workshops, the monthly webinars, they're open to everyone, so please feel free to register anytime on the ESIG website at www.esig.energy. And you can also find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. Okay, a few logistics. All participant lines are going to be muted for the duration of the webinar, so we avoid unnecessary distractions. For questions and answers, we've moved to the Slido platform, and we ask that you go to slido.com, enter ESIG2, ESIG2, as the event code. And the instructions are right here on the screen, and you'll see a thumbs up button next to the questions, so you can cast a vote to help prioritize the questions that are submitted. So we're going to save 10 to 15 minutes at the end for questions and answers. We'll wrap it up at the top of the hour, and an email with a link will be provided once the video file has been posted, and we'll also provide short responses to unanswered questions after the webinar. So please don't be afraid to ask your questions through Slido. So today, our topic is on interregional transmission. Inefficient use of interregional transmission facilities unnecessarily raises system costs and reduces reliability. And during many hours, interregional power flows don't fully utilize available transmission capabilities, even if there are high price differences. Sometimes they even flow power in the opposite direction to the price differences. And market monitors have been pointing this out for over a decade. Today, we're really excited. We've got two highly esteemed speakers discussing what can be done to fix this. First, we have Norman Bay. He's the co-chair of the Energy Commodities Group, and he's the head of the Energy Regulatory Practice at Willkie, Farr, and Gallagher in Washington, D.C. And previously, you may know Norman when he was chair at the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, as well as the director of the Office of Enforcement at FERC, where he helped shape FERC policy on enforcement and compliance, storage, distributed energy resources, transmission and interconnection, and price formation, lots of topics. And then we have another speaker, Hannes Pfeifenberger, a principal at the Brattle Group, and he's well known to many of you in the transmission industry, having just published a new report on operational market benefits of HVDC transmission. And Hannes specializes in wholesale electricity markets and transmission, and he has over 25 years of experience. So we're very excited to have them today. A short reminder again, go to slido.com, use the event code of ESIG2 to ask your questions. And without any further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Norman and Hannes to deliver the presentation.
Well, thank you, Debbie, and thank you, ESIG, for holding this webinar on the need for intertie optimization. In our presentation today, we're going to cover three different subjects. First, the case for intertie optimization between regions. And this will cover some of the history of intertie optimization, the use of coordinated transaction scheduling in different or across different RTO markets, and the use of intertie optimization in the Western EIM, as well as the experience in Europe with market coupling. And we'll also discuss the CAISO subscriber PTO proposal that has recently been filed with the Commission. Next, we'll look at the potential value of intertie optimization and why it matters. And Hannes will be covering the first two topics. The last topic is the regulatory case for intertie optimization. Obviously, it doesn't do much good to have a great proposal if the law would not allow FERC to adopt the construct of the proposal. But here, I think the good news is that under its authority in the Federal Power Act, either Section 205 or Section 206, FERC could implement intertie optimization. So let me give you an executive summary here. The history behind intertie optimization goes back to 2011, more than a decade ago. NISO, ISO New England, and Potomac Economics recommended the use of intertie optimization to address market seams between NISO and ISO New England. But at the end of the day, the Commission adopted CTS, not what was called then tie optimization. The Commission hoped that CTS would work, but it turns out that it has had a lot of shortcomings, and the market monitors have criticized the use of CTS for more than a decade, noting that it has not resulted in the efficiencies that originally had been hoped for. In contrast, when you look at the Western EIM and the European experience with market coupling, we can see that intertie optimization offers substantial economic reliability and renewable integration benefits. Then, of course, we have a proposal now pending before the Commission involving subscriber PTO, which would basically allow for full day-ahead and real-time optimization of interregional merchant transmission. And so for all those reasons, we believe that the time is right to consider intertie optimization and that it really promises significant benefits to reduce market inefficiencies and to promote the development of interregional transfer capability. And the numbers in terms of the economic benefits are really, really substantial. As Hannes will explain, intertie optimization could save $50 to $60 million per year for every 1,000 megawatts of interregional transmission. And finally, as I mentioned previously, FERC has the authority to implement intertie optimization, and that's either under Section 205 of the Federal Power Act or under Section 206. And with that, let me turn to Hannes to discuss the case for intertie optimization between regions.
So I figured out how to share my screen and unmute myself. Now I just need to figure out how to get my video up. Can people hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure. I don't see the button for my video. There we go. Start video. All right, sorry for that little hiccup. Let's go into some of the technical detail. There's a little bit more detail than we will cover in this webinar, but we are releasing this slide deck in a report format with the same title that should be up on several of our websites. just about now. So this starts out with recognizing that we actually have a fair amount of interregional transmission capacity, but that transmission capacity is pretty poorly utilized. Just to give you an example, PJM in its 2022 State of the Market report noted that between MISO and PJM, even when the price difference exceeded $10 per megawatt hours during more than 3,000 hours a year, about almost half of the hours, you had market flows that were inconsistent with those price differences, exporting power from the higher price to lower priced market. That, of course, is really inefficient and shouldn't really be happening in real time if we utilize the interties fully in the market. On PJM New York, it's a little bit better, but we have more hours of $10 or greater price differences, about 4,200 hours, with inconsistent market flows during about 40% of these hours of the year. Potomac Economics similar observes intertie inefficiencies, saying that on the MISO seam, about 40% of transactions are currently unprofitable. And between NYISO and New England, which has coordinated transaction scheduled without a hurdle rate, we see that the efficiency of real-time trades has been deteriorating in recent years, achieving optimal real-time transaction now during only about 11% of the year, down from 23% in 2018. So this inefficiency is particularly pronounced in the real-time market, for which price forecasting for the next 1 or 2 hours even is becoming increasingly more difficult. On a day-ahead basis, that actually looks a little better. We do see price differences averaging about $13 between PJM and NYISO, and those price differences change about 3 times per day. So bilateral traders can follow that. With MISO PJM, you have about $9 average price differences, with prices changing signs about 4 times a day. So bilateral trades are fairly good, about 90% of getting those trades right. In real time, it's quite the opposite. And the reason why it's so difficult and why tile-line optimization will be so important is that we see very large absolute price differences. These 5-minute prices bounce around quite a bit and spike quite frequently. Now, 2022, of course, was a year of high gas prices and winter storms and so on, but we see prices changing 50 to 60 times a day. So that is more than 2 or 3 times each hour, and that makes it really hard for anybody trying to trade bilaterally to take advantage of the trading opportunities. But that poor utilization has long been documented. It actually started with Potomac Economics pointing this out in 2003, then again in 2010. And Potomac Economics estimated that between the eastern ISOs, including Ontario, about $160 to $300 million could be saved annually if those real-time intertie schedules would be optimized. In 2011, NYISO and New England then proposed in a very detailed report how to address these seams-related inefficiencies. And you will get the sites here as well as in the report. But as we said, little has changed in those 10 years. Back then in 2011, the ISOs proposed inter-optimization because analysis showed that too little power was flowing the correct directions for more than 4,000 hours per year. And they also pointed out that even when the price difference back then exceeded $5, the total energy expenditures would be on the order of $1 to $200 million lower annually, or perhaps $500,000 per day lower, if the real-time interregional exchange system produced efficient interties. That's a quote from that path-breaking report. And they also identified 3 root causes. One is latency, the fact that scheduled trades have to be submitted prior to when power actually flows in real time, and that 1 or 2 years of delay, 1 or 2 hours of delay makes a big difference. There's also some non-economic clearing in the market engines where intertie trades are contract path, whereas each market is nodal. And then finally, the transactions cost, that we are imposing fixed costs on transactions that don't reflect the actual variable cost on the system, which means a lot of transmission capacities left unutilized, even though power could be flowed economically. And the two ISOs specified two fully implementable designs. One was tie optimization, or as we could now call it intertie optimization. Some people also refer to interface optimization, which was really the idea that once all bilateral trades are done, the ISOs would optimize the remaining available capacity if there was efficient power flow, power that could be exchanged. Was also a second proposal, coordinated transaction schedule, that would facilitate bilateral trading in real time through a bid format and real-time price forecasts. The ISOs recommended intertie optimization as a preferred solution because it was more efficient, and CTS was not expected to produce as complete an optimal result. But only CTS was implemented. It was somewhat less, a bit simpler, less complicated. There was also less of a concern that the ISO's tie optimization might infringe on bilateral trading, and it was hoped that CTS as a less complex solution would still be almost as efficient. What we are finding out, as we've said in the summary, that is not the case. Potomac Economics notes that CTS has produced little of sizable savings that could generate, and that more than 40% of the current transactions are unprofitable. And to address those, the IMM for MISO and New York and New England has said that they recommend that the RTOs consider modifying the CTS to clear transactions every 5 minutes through the unit dispatch systems based on the most recent 5-minute prices. So to not have that 1 or 2 hour delay in trading and forecasting. Similarly, PJM Market Monitor has recommended intertie optimization, and they've had this recommendation in the State of Market report since 2014, stating that the MMU recommends that PJM explore an interchange optimization solution with its neighboring balancing authorities that would remove the need for market participants to schedule physical transactions across the seam in real time, of course. Such a solution would include an optimized but limited joint dispatch approach that uses supply curves and treats seams between balancing authorities as constraints similar to other constraints within an LMP market. This recommendation is, of course, supported by a finding of inefficient intertie schedules that is consistent with seeing flows inconsistent with price differences during almost half of the trading hours. And this is just a reference to the tables out of the market monitoring report that shows that even at a $10 price difference, where almost 3,200 hours are profitable, about half of those 3,200 hours are not flowing economically. What has changed in those last 10 years? Well, one thing is that we actually have experience with intertie optimization. It's not called that way, but through the Western EIM and EIS, the imbalance markets, we have really created a system that optimizes in real time all available transmission across interregional seams between balancing areas in the West. Of course, these imbalance markets do a bit more than just optimize the interties, but that was the primary motivation, that one created a overlay that in real time would help the balancing areas deal with the volatility and the uncertainty. As you may know, those transactions are scheduled on a 15 and 5-minute basis after all bilateral trading has closed. So approximately 20 minutes before each real-time period, you can't trade bilaterally anymore. and using transmission that remains available at that time that would otherwise go unutilized, these energy imbalance market optimizing transactions across with the value of the transaction accruing to the neighboring balancing areas or other entities that contribute the available transmission. The experience shows us, we'll see in a bit, that the savings from doing that are significant. But in response to that success, market operators in the West have now started to develop day-ahead market optimization as well, because interregional transmission optimized on a day-ahead basis offers additional benefits. And then I won't go into it right now, but we have a discussion of it in our report. There's flow-based market coupling that has been implemented in Central and Western Europe, also for transmission left available after bilateral day-ahead or intraday trading closes. That has been a big success, and market coupling is now being expanded from Central and Western Europe into Scandinavia. We need to recognize, however, that increasingly interregional transmission is provided by merchant transmission companies. We have merchant transmission lines already between some of the ISOs like PJM in New York, but we see a lot of merchant plants being developed in the West, such as Transwest Express or Zamzia, that would bring renewables from distant states to Southern Nevada and Southern California. The costs of those transmission, of course, are recovered from subscribers rather from native load customers. But integrating whatever transmission capability remains available into the market would be really valuable. And that is what the SPTO proposal is trying to do. In a nutshell, and you can look it up in this FERC docket, the entire merchant transmission facility is put under CalISO operational control in this case. It provides priority rights to subscribers, the people who are subscribing transmission on the merchant facility, creates a perfect hedge, but any unscheduled merchant transmission that is made available for market use can then be optimized regionally and interregionally in both day-ahead and real-time markets. The CalISO will do that through the Western EIM and the proposed EDAM, and then pay to the parties making that transmission available compensation for the market use of the transaction, but do so in a non-pancaked way to not undermine economic transactions. And those payments are paid from the CalISO's transmission access charge, like the wheeling out charge that otherwise wouldn't be collected in the first place. So what is the potential value of intertie optimization? You've all seen the discussion of Western imbalance market benefits. We see that the WEIM, the Western Energy Imbalance Market, which is the larger of the two markets in the West, has been in effect in operation since 2014, but now has over $4 billion in savings over and above what each of the participating members and bilateral trades could have achieved. Now, of course, the imbalance market spans 19 members by 2022. It's actually now 22 members in 2023. And we see quarterly savings in the $100 to $500 million range. So very important. Of course, this is more than just the interties, and in the East it would be different because many of these balancing areas are consolidated already, and we just have the seam between fairly large RTOs. But nevertheless, it's an illustration that this is possible, and it is efficient and saves money. Now, what does that mean with respect to the rest of the US? As you know, Berkeley Labs last year has estimated, based on the last decade or so of real-time price differences, that there's significant value of transmission between the various regions and within the regions. And they've quantified that. Here's one of their results. It shows that from 2012 through 2021, on average, a link between SPP and MISO would have been worth about $155 million for every 1,000 megawatt of transfer capability, just looking at the price differences. This is, of course, a bookend estimate because as you build transmission, those price differences would change. But we know, based on this analysis, that there is a lot of value. We also know that the interregional links are more valuable than the intra-regional links. And importantly, about 40 to 80% of the transmission's real-time congestion value is from 5% of all hours during the year. Those are challenging market conditions, not just winter storms, but many other things. That just tells you that it is important to respond very quickly if you want to take advantage of this type of transmission value. What this means for intertie optimization is that intertie optimization would immediately create benefits by increasing real-time transactions over the existing but inefficiently used links between these regions. But it would also increase the value that can be realized by new transmission links. So now the question is, how much of the value that you see, this potential value that you see in the slides, could be captured by bilateral trades already versus how much could be captured only through intertie optimization. These values, importantly, have been increasing. In 2022 and 23, and LBNL did an update earlier this year, these intertie values are substantially larger. For example, the value that was $155 million between SPP and MISO, as you can see on these slides, have been worth between $300 and $400 million for every 1,000 megawatts in 21 and 22. These, of course, are 2 years with significant winter storms, with higher gas prices, but also a higher geographic diversity value given how many renewables and other weather-dependent resources have been added. So we did an analysis of how much intertie optimization might be worth by looking at how much bilateral trades might be able to capture. We looked at a case study of interties between SPP, MISO, and PJM. And just to give you a high-level result, we find that about 20 to 30% of the total real-time transmission value cannot be captured by bilateral trades if there's a 1 to 2 hour delay in how trading is done. This is a bookend value of interregional transfer capacity, or how much that would be worth, but it's nevertheless a very important reference point because latency has been identified as being the primary driver of the inefficiencies of intertie trades so far. So the analysis we've done was to look at how much trading would be worth on any particular path if you had perfect foresight, if you could really take full advantage of the price difference. The analysis we've done is only on an hourly basis, so on a 5-minute basis, it would even be larger. But when we did this analysis and then said, what if you trade the next hour based on this hour's price difference or based on the last hour's price difference? So approximating your ability to forecast 1 or 2 hours ahead to be no better than observing the current real-time price, you get a difference between the delayed trading and the perfect trading that causes about a 20 to 30% loss of the total transmission value, or about 50 to 60 million per year for every 1,000 megawatts of intertie capacity between these markets. We think maybe the number is a little bit larger or a little bit smaller, depending on whether the 5-minute granularity is more important, or bilateral trades would have better forecasts than observing the current real-time price. But whatever it is, we know forecasts are highly imperfect. Even the ISO's forecast of real-time prices are highly imperfect. And that kind of trading based on actual real-time conditions can only be captured through an automated system such as inter-optimization. For merchant line, of course, that is the same, although the inter-optimization revenues wouldn't go to native load customers, but would need to go to whoever makes the transmission available for market optimization. And that gets us back to the subscriber RTO proposal. This is just a summary of our analysis. You can look at this at your leisure, but here is basically where we see the loss in value based on a 1 or 2 hour delay in trading. Norman, I hand it back over to you.
Thanks, Hannes. So as you can see, Hannes has explained why there is a powerful economic case in support of intertie optimization. And so naturally, the question is going to be, well, what about the regulatory case? Can a market participant make an argument at FERC that the Commission should implement intertie optimization? And I conclude that there is a strong basis for the Commission to be able to exercise its authority. And what helps here is that, as you know, many of the Commission's most effective, most durable policies build upon its precedent, where the Commission engages in incremental reform and over time identifies best practices and then shares those best practices across markets. And I think you can think about intertie optimization in that fashion. So the Commission has long recognized the inefficiencies of market seams. In creating regional markets, the Commission recognized that one issue was going to be trying to facilitate transactions across those market seams, and that being able to facilitate those transactions would increase competition and efficiency, and conversely, having a barrier to those transactions created an inefficiency. And so the Commission has long sought to reduce market seams. And it's done that because it has the obligation under the Federal Power Act to ensure that rates be just and reasonable. And so when you look at Commission precedent, it's pretty clear that the Commission over time has, in a number of ways, sought to reduce market seams. I think the best example of that would be the use of CTS between ISO New England and NYISO, a proposal that the Commission accepted in 2012, followed by the adoption of CTS between NYISO and PJM, and then PJM and MISO. And going beyond CTS, as Hannes explained, we have the Commission accepting intertie optimization within the design of the Western energy imbalance market. So there's a lot of history here, as it turns out, and it points in the direction of adoption of intertie optimization. Well, let's look at the Commission's authority under Section 205 of the FPA. Basically, if the RTOs propose intertie optimization, the Commission would have the clear authority to accept the filing. Under Section 205, the Commission should accept the filing if the proposal is just and reasonable. And here we know that it would be just and reasonable given the economic analysis that Hannes explained. In addition, and this is really helpful here, when you go back to the NISO order from 2012, when the Commission accepted CTS, the Commission actually left the door open to intertie optimization. At the time, they called it tie optimization, but the Commission said, look, if CTS turns out not to deliver the benefits that we're hoping it delivers, we will consider a different proposal, an alternative, such as tie optimization, if it is determined that such changes could result in greater cost savings. And what Brattle's analysis shows is that tie optimization or intertie optimization would result in greater cost savings. So we know that if the RTOs were to make a proposal adopting intertie optimization and made this filing under Section 205, that the Commission would have the authority to accept it, that it left the door open for intertie optimization. But that leads to the next question. Well, what if an RTO did not make that filing trying to adopt intertie optimization? Here, the Commission could require the use of intertie optimization using its Section 206 authority. Under Section 206 of the Federal Power Act, there are two requirements. First, the complainant has to show that the existing rate is unjust and unreasonable. And second, the complainant has to propose a replacement rate that is just and reasonable. So how could a complainant show that CTS is unjust and unreasonable? And here, let me point out that a complaint could be filed by a market participant, or the Commission could act using its 206 authority to hold a technical conference and to engage in a rulemaking process. But how would the complainant show that CTS is unjust and unreasonable? The complainant could rely upon the record that Hannes has pointed out, that between 40 to 50% of the time, power is flowing in the wrong direction between RTO markets. That is, it's going from the high-priced market to the low-priced market. That means that there are cost impacts for consumers. And attempts to improve CTS have not really resulted in greater efficiencies. And as Hannes has pointed out, we know that the problems are going to get worse over time because of greater volatility in the real-time market. And so, so that's a problem, right? That sounds like something that's not just and reasonable. In contrast to CTS, we know that the EIM has proven the value of intertie optimization with benefits of over $4 billion since 2014. So these inefficient power flows are costing consumers hundreds of millions of dollars a year, and they also reduce competition in the markets because low-priced power can't access a higher-priced market. So these schemes would also impair reliability and resilience because they impede the flow of power on a timely basis during scarcity conditions, including extreme weather events. And as the Commission's interregional transfer capability proceeding has shown in the record there, that we all know that extreme weather events are increasing in both frequency and severity. And so the failure to optimize interties means that existing infrastructure is underutilized and that the benefits of interregional transmission are not fully realized or compensated by the markets. And this means that there's less of an incentive to build interregional transmission and results in a planning process that undervalues its benefits. So that would be the case that the existing rate is unjust and unreasonable. So what about the argument about the replacement rate and whether or not the replacement rate is just and reasonable? Here, there's actually a rich record for the Commission to draw upon. As Hannes noted, in 2011, ISO New England and NISO issued a white paper that had a design for intertie optimization. The Commission could look to what's happening in Europe with respect to market coupling. And of course, closer to home, the Commission could examine the EIM. So there are designs out there, and in addition, in a tech conference, the Commission could have a panel discuss market design. I should also add that there's even a paper on the IEEE discussing a design for intertie optimization. So there's a lot of material out there that the Commission could draw upon in order to basically propose a replacement rate. A replacement rate that would be just and reasonable and a significant improvement over CTS. The bottom line, the time is ripe to consider intertie optimization. That intertie optimization could reduce seam-related inefficiencies and barriers to interregional transmission development, including for merchant lines that provide regional market benefits without regulated cost recovery from customers. And of course, this issue of cost and cost allocation is something that concerns the Commission, and that can be a significant impediment to the development of interregional transmission. We also know that NISO, ISO New England, and Potomac Economics have called for intertie optimization from 2010 to 2011 to address these seams-related inefficiencies, but that the Commission ultimately adopted CTS. We also know that for the past decade, market monitors have continued to document the seams-related inefficiencies and have noted the inadequacies of CTS. More than that, they've recommended intertie optimization. And we know from experience with the Western EIM and European market coupling that intertie optimization offers significant benefits to consumers. In addition, EDAM and Markets Plus will further enhance the value of intertie optimization across balancing authority seams in the West. Then there's CAISO's new subscriber PTO proposal, which integrates available capacity on merchant transmission projects for optimization in the regional and interregional energy market. So again, this is not going to be new ground for the Commission to consider. And finally, and this is again very, very helpful, not only are there substantial economic benefits here, but FERC has the authority to approve or to implement intertie optimization under Section 205 or Section 206 of the Federal Power Act.
Thank you so much, Norman. Thank you so much, Hannes. That was a fascinating webinar. There's a ton of questions and engagement. Again, for those of you who have questions, go to slido.com, enter ESIG2. And again, for everyone who's on the webinar, you're all going to be getting a copy of or a link to the slides and to the video recording. So the first question is, given how long the market monitors have flagged the need for intertie optimization, do you have any insight into why the RTOs haven't done so?
Yeah, really good question. I think initially when CTS was implemented, it didn't work too well for the first 5 years or so. People felt that one has to give it some time. Maybe there are ways to improve CTS. Maybe it will work better over time. Maybe one can tweak it. Unfortunately, none of that has really worked. And as we see with ISO New England and New York, which has sort of the best version of CTS in many ways because there's no transactions cost, there's no pancaking, CTS has gone worse. So why hasn't it happened yet? The ISOs have had a lot of work to do on all kinds of matters, and maybe intertie optimization just hasn't risen to the level where it would become a priority. But I think we now have enough experience, particularly with the success of the Western EIM and what Europe is doing on market coupling, that the time might have come now to prioritize that. And I hope that with a broader discussion of this issue, it will rise to the level of importance where the ISOs would contemplate embracing this.
Thanks, Hannes. Sorry, I need to turn off my video because my internet seems to be going unstable. Norman, did you have anything to add?
I agree with Hannes. I mean, it's not like the RTOs haven't had a lot of other things to work on, right? Whether it's their interconnection queues or other market issues. And I think that that this study that Brattle and Willkie are issuing is really timely, because I think in the last year or two, there's been increased attention on the need for interregional transfer capability, on using existing infrastructure more effectively and efficiently, and on promoting the development of a new interregional transmission. And so that's why we think it's a timely study that we're doing, and that even if this idea has been around for a while and people have kind of lost sight of it, it's time to really focus on the issue.
Great, thanks. Another question is, why is it that FERC adopted only coordinated transaction scheduling in 2011 and not intertie optimization? So why did FERC make that decision?
Well, Norman, I'm sure you can say more about this given your review of the FERC order, but I think CTS was a more incremental change. It felt to be somewhat less complicated. It, would use the bilateral trading model to get closer to intertie optimization, and there was the hope that it could be almost as efficient as intertie optimization.
Yeah, I would add to that I think the commission thought that CTS would be easier to implement while still delivering a lot of value. There was also a trigger in the NISO filing that called for a review of CTS and how tie optimization would have worked out, how tie optimization would have worked out. And that trigger was not met at the time, but that's because of the design of tie optimization. It didn't fully address the latency issue that Hannes mentioned. Since that time, there have been tweaks to the intertie optimization design that would capture the efficiencies. So I think there were a number of things going on there. But for sure, the market monitors have continued to focus on the issue and have called for the use of intertie optimization.
Great, thanks. There's another question. Why are intertie flows inconsistent with market prices? So maybe a little more color on.
Yeah, no, that's certainly the key question here. I think what we're seeing is that in real time, there's a lot of price volatility. The price difference between ISOs changes 2 to 3 times a day, if 2 or 3 times an hour, if not more. Trading is mostly hourly trading. We now have 15-minute trading, but a lot of the bilateral trades have to be scheduled or bid in with CTS 75 minutes, 2 hours ahead of time. So I think what happens is that in day ahead, we don't see that big inconsistency. There's some inconsistency there too, but it's like 90% or so going in the right direction at least. In real time, the volatility in each market is large enough that these price differences fluctuate so frequently that bilateral trades, even if they try to, just can't follow that price signal. And so flows continue even though the prices would point the other way.
Great, thanks. Norman, did you want to add anything?
No, I don't have anything further to add to Hannes's explanation.
Okay, there's a couple questions from Russ Philbrick. The first is intertie optimization simply another way of converting transmission rights from physical to financial rights, avoiding inefficiency of OASIS scheduling?
Good question. I would think the problem is that the physical transactions are wrong. So it's not just about converting physical rights to financial rights. It's really using the transmission capacity that remains unutilized or utilized the wrong way. So I would say this is more about a physical power schedule that really means exchanging energy in real time. So I don't see the financial aspects of it, but it's certainly a problem that OASIS, that bilateral trading, is not able to fully take advantage of the transmission capabilities that we have, at least not in real time, where the OASIS trading system is just not nimble enough to follow 5-minute price differences.
Okay, thanks. The other question he asked was, how to avoid increase in time required to clear markets with inclusion of intertie optimization? It might work for small markets, but what about large markets?
Very good question. In our report and in these slides, we point to a 2014 IEEE paper. Basically, it is about decomposing the optimization problems. So it's not if you have two huge RTOs like MISO and PJM next to each other, the objective is not necessarily to run a single optimization for the entire footprint of both RTOs and the other RTOs around them, but to really take the information that the ISOs have on LMPs at the tie points and the resources they have available with shift factors on any relevant constraints to basically create a secondary optimization routine that allows for both optimizations to converge close or get closer to a full geographic optimization. I encourage you to read that IEEE paper more closely. The other thing I want to say is that we have seen that our optimization software and capabilities have been greatly enhanced over the last decade. We are able to now run a full optimization for the entire WEC. So large-scale optimizations might be possible. It might as well be possible to create a EIM-type overlay over the eastern RTOs to optimize the transmission between them more fully. And thank you, Russ. I wouldn't have expected any less detailed questions from you.
All right, thanks, Russ. So another question is, how can the Western interconnection be named as a good case when there's not even any coordinated congestion method or SEAMS agreements?
Well, there's a SEAMS agreement. Everyone in the Western EIM, all 22 balancing areas in the Western EIM have agreed that they will let the EIM software optimize their transmission and their generation resources. So we don't have a Western RTO, obviously, other than CalISO, but I think the West is ahead of the East on at least optimizing across balancing area seams. And in the West, this was done simply by people joining the EIM or the EIS. The EIS is the SPP imbalancing markets in the mountain region. So it definitely can be done. In the East, it might even be easier because the ISOs already have seams agreements, and adding optimization shouldn't be too hard. In fact, back in 2011, ISO New England and New York ISO thought they could implement intertie optimization as proposed in that white paper.
Great, thanks. Here's a question for you, Norman. Do you think FERC has to wait for RTOs to propose intertie optimization? Or is there political will for FERC to act absent RTOs proposing it?
I think and hope that there will be a lot of interest at FERC with respect to intertie optimization. So it's a concept that will not be a new one to FERC. It's one that they considered in 2012 when they opted for CTS. It's one they've adopted with respect to the Western Energy Imbalance Market. We know that the Commission is very concerned about interregional transfer capability and the ability of each region to respond to extreme weather events and scarcity conditions. The Commission is also concerned, understandably, over the cost of new regulated transmission. But intertie optimization basically results in higher utilization of existing infrastructure while promoting new interregional transmission development. So basically, Debbie, I think it checks a lot of boxes for the Commission given its current concerns. I think the Commission could examine intertie optimization within the context of either the existing interregional transfer capability docket, or it could create a new docket to explore this issue along with issues related to merchant HVDC transmission. So that's going to be a call for the Commission. But I think the Commission will be very interested to try to gauge the reaction of the RTOs to see whether there is an appetite among the RTOs to take this idea and to develop it further. And so the Commission may decide to give the RTOs a little bit of a runway there, but you could also see the Commission trying to facilitate that discussion among RTOs and RTO stakeholders by exploring the issue in a workshop or in a technical conference. So we'll have to see what the Commission decides to do. Typically, the Commission prefers to let the RTOs come to the Commission with a proposal, right? One that's been vetted by all of the stakeholders within an RTO. One complication here, though, will be that it will require pairs of RTOs to implement intertie optimization. And you wouldn't want the basic design of the RTOs to vary among different pairings of RTOs, or you could inadvertently create some other complications. So we'll just have to see how the Commission decides to evaluate all of this in deciding what the path forward ought to be.
Thank you, Norman. Yes, I hope that with this webinar and this new report, and I see Hannes just put the link to the new report in the chat here for folks who want to download it, that raising awareness around this topic and getting more folks interested in the cost savings that could be had by optimizing interties that maybe will we'll see some action happen. I'm realizing that we're at the top of the hour, so we're going to need to wrap it up. Are there any last things that Hannes, you or Norman would like to say to folks before we wrap this up?
Well, let's try to get this done. I think it's time, and it's hard to plan new interregional transmission unless you know that that transmission can be fully utilized and fully realize its value in the market. So I think the time has come to address this issue because, as we've seen, it's getting more and more challenging to take advantage of those real-time trading opportunities.
And I would just add, it's hard to find an idea that will increase market efficiency, increase competition, reduce consumer costs or save consumers money, improve reliability and resilience, and promote interregional transmission and the use of existing infrastructure. But intertie optimization, in fact, does all of that. And so, like Hannes, we hope that this is an idea that gets some traction.
Thank you so much, Hannes and Norman. That's a great sales pitch for why this is important. As I mentioned earlier to all the participants, you'll get an email once the video file has been posted. We'll answer the questions we didn't get to and get them posted as quickly as possible also. And we appreciate everyone's engagement. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Perhaps at the fall workshop, which starts October 23rd in San Diego, or we have a webinar on October 17th by Andrew Weimers of Lancium on Power to X. And further information on all of our webinars, meetings, etc. can be found at www.esig.energy under events, and then our newsletters and informational emails. You're all invited to attend. Norman and Hannes, thank you again for this really timely and informative webinar. And thank you all for your interest. And we look forward to seeing you again in the near future. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.